Oh yeah, yeah. Okay, you've joined. Arey, wow, great. Sorry, I think I haven't seen you with these sci-fi headphones before. So okay, great. I'm sorry, we're a bit technically challenged. You know that. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
No, not clearly. Okay, just a sec.
Where is it?
Yeah.
There is a key.
What?
Don't increase the volume.
Oh, the volume? Yeah.
I can hear you guys well.
That's the volume button.
Yeah.
Want me to get headphones also?
There's somebody else also.
Okay.
So you need to go to the Q&A.
This? Yeah. Yeah, hi Sidin, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, talk.
Okay. Hello and welcome Sidin. It's wonderful to see you after so long. I mean, we keep chatting on email and Twitter, but we haven't really met each other for a while, and I'm really delighted to have you today on the first ever EGB Google Hangout with a famous author like you. Yeah, so well, we have a whole bunch of aspiring authors, writers, readers who have signed up and will be joining us. But I guess we'll start right away, and we will be later posting it on our website and on YouTube. So should we start?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'd like to introduce Sidin Vadukut, author of 4 best-selling books. 3 of them are the well-loved Dork series with Robin Einstein Verghese, and the 4th is his most recent foray into non-fiction, which is a little troubling for me. I thought you're safe in the fiction section, but now you've invaded non-fiction with The Skeptical Secret. And today we basically want to talk to you about Sidin, the whole journey of writing and publishing, because most of the members of our website are people who, want to get published and they want to know how you've done it and what is your, journey as a writer. So I think I'll start at the very beginning and ask you this, very, I think, simple question, which is when did the writing bug bite you first?
I first started writing very, very long time ago. I think I got my first piece published when I was, I think, in 5th standard, which makes me about 11 or 12 years old. And I think it was an outcome of a couple of things. I think one, I grew up in an environment where reading was my primary kind of pastime. I spent all my time reading. And I also, even though I grew up in the development, people kind of assume that it was a glamorous lifestyle. I actually grew up in a fairly kind of economically constrained family. So I'd buy like 2 books a year and then I'd reread them throughout the year and so on. And as I got older, my dad realized that buying encyclopedias actually make more sense because I get me to read for much longer. So they disperse on value. Encyclopedias get much greater value. So I read anything. I read a dictionary once, I remember, cover to cover, because I had nothing else to read. So I started reading a lot. And then in school, our teachers kind of started asking everyone to write as part of the syllabus. I started writing. I discovered I enjoyed it a lot. And then I wrote a lot through school, right up till I think 8th or 9th standard. And then I just completely stopped writing all the way to engineering college. And then for many years I didn't write at all, anything. And what happened in engineering college largely was that there was a captive audience. If you wrote something and put it up on the notice board, everybody had to read. And this was really helpful. So I started writing. So yeah, it's extremely unglamorous. I mean, there wasn't a great moment of epiphany when I realized that I wanted to be a writer. And I think that for a large part, I was a very bad writer, right to the end of engineering. I mean, I only got through because I was very enthusiastic about it. If I ever actually stepped back and actually judged how well I was writing, I probably would have something I just did for pastime to something I started working on, and trying to improve every time. Yeah.
Okay. So initially you were just writing for yourself, just for fun. I mean, it wasn't really to get published or to get popular or to earn money or anything like that.
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, a large part of my early writing was these horrible patriotic poems and terribly wannabe kind of teenage existential bad writing, horrible writing. And I think what really tipped it and made me rethink everything was basically being in engineering college and actually starting to read a lot of books. And since then I've been uh, went from being a consumer of a book, kind of a passive consumer of books, to being a much more active consumer of books. I underline passive a lot more. I'm much more conscious of how writers comprehend books. So all of these things happen simultaneously in engineering college, and that is what really changes everything. So till then, like you said, I was just basically writing for myself.
Okay, so we have some questions from some of the readers and writers who've joined us. So I'll just actually ask you one of those questions. Okay, so we have Sujit Patel who wants to know what's the biggest challenge for a first-time author.
For me, there are maybe several big challenges. I was actually very lucky to get published because if I had tried to write the first Dork book 3 years before or 3 years later, I don't think I would have got published. It just changed very quickly in that period. I was very lucky because the IIM wave of IIM people getting published was just beginning. So I think that really, I was able to put my foot into the door at that point. If I had written the exact same book 3 or 4 years later, I think the reception would have been very different. So those are all challenges, but I think for me, I think for a lot of other first-time writers I talk to, their biggest challenge seems to be being open to feedback, accepting the feedback, and working on their writing. Rashmi, to give you an idea, I speak to maybe 2 budding authors a month, every month. Right? This has happened for the last 3 or 4 years. That's what 50 authors maybe, and they all send me work, and as much as possible, I give all of them frank feedback. And as you would expect, many of these guys, some of these guys aren't good writers. Many of them have good ideas, but execute them badly and so on. And 99% of the time, I give negative feedback and never get back to me. A lot of people, half of them take it badly, the other half of them get very stupid. And for me, I think that's the biggest challenge. If you're a first-time writer and your audience is always being batch-based and family and so on, I think for the first time you're getting being able to internalize feedback is a huge challenge, extremely difficult challenge. And I was again lucky because I started getting feedback from my manuscripts after I worked with you for a long time. And then I joined Ming. And working with all of you, you get used to editors basically ripping about your work. I remember some of the early work I used to give you, and you used to give me extremely brutal feedback. That kind of, it tempers your ego a fair bit. And then later when you have anybody giving you feedback, you're able to kind of deal with it better. And I was lucky that, to that extent, I was lucky that I was journalist before I wrote my first book. And I think that's the greatest challenge. It's not writing. Anybody can write. A slightly more difficult challenge is being able to read. A lot of writers don't read enough, in my opinion. Getting published is not as difficult as it used to be. You can somehow get published, and that is not a problem. If you're a good manuscript, publishers will notice. But if you're not open to feedback, you will never improve as a writer. And for me, that has always been the biggest challenge for new writers.
Okay. Yeah, so I think we're going to request you to help some of our authors with feedback, since that's the primary focus of our website. So whenever you have a little bit of time, if you can take a look at some of them and give them some honest feedback. I think, as you said, sometimes you might have to work on your approach to the whole idea, or refine it, or maybe make it work in terms of a plot or something like that, which may not happen the first time you try to write the book. So do you work on multiple drafts of your book, or is it just first time as it comes to you?
No, I don't know if I've not spoken about this a lot, but Dork was not my first book. I had actually written a manuscript just after I graduated from business school. And I've actually lost that manuscript. It's this horrible little novel, which was extremely very self-absorbed. I mean, even the Dork series is very very self-absorbed. But this was such a horrible manuscript, and I've never published. I think I've lost it. I do write several drafts. What has happened over time, and is that initially I used to spend less time thinking and more time writing and rewriting. And now the equation has changed. I spend a lot more time planning what I'm going to write before I write. So I would spend 6 months once I sign a book contract. Like for example, my last book, I spent a year just chapter outline, research, structuring, and I only start writing when I think I have a very good structure. The reason is because I find writing a very physically exhausting process. And I know there are writers who write 5 drafts, but if I wrote 5 drafts of my book, I would basically drop down and die after a second draft. So what I do is I spend a lot more time researching, structuring everything. I keep my typewriter to write only when I'm ready. But when I start, I write like a mad person. I do 6,000, 7,000 word days. I've had a couple of days when I've done 10,000 words. So I write the book in 6 weeks. Yeah, so it's kind of months of research and preparation every week of writing.
Yeah. There's a small problem. I think people are saying they can't hear you too well. Even I couldn't, but I thought maybe it's some problem in my connection. Are you on a phone or a broadband, or what are you on?
No, I'm on broadband and I have a headphone. Give me a second, Rashmi. I'll just change my headset. Give me 1 second.
Okay. Hello? No, I don't know what he's waiting for something. Hello? Can you hear us?
He's not answering anything.
No, we can't hear you at all. Send a message from my computer, no? From that MacBook. No, we can't hear you at all now. Can't hear you. Yeah. Our internet is okay. Nobody can hear him. Everyone's saying that we can't hear you. There's some problem at his end. I can put another internet connection also. We have another one upstairs. Yeah, but this is on full. This is on full. Maybe he'll dial in again. I think he's dialing in again. Yeah, one person has written. Now, how do I send a group chat? No, one person has written something. I'm also replying. Yeah, now he's joined again. No, he joined again. Basically, we should be able to hear him. That's about it. He left and he's joined back. And I don't know how we're going to actually put this up online because it has all kinds of We'll have to maybe put the transcript on there. Huh? I know that. That's the whole problem with this. Oh, there he is. This is that. He's saying something, but we can't hear him. Like, we can't hear you. I don't know why, but we can't hear you at all. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, now some faint noises come. Hello? Hello? Just get my laptop. I'll just send him a message. Hello, we can hear the keyboard being pressed or something, but we can't hear him at all. So he sent a message on chat now.
When do you know that your book is
But we still can't hear him, no?
People voice a couple of times.
लंदन में ब्रॉडबैंड ऐसा है क्या?
God damn it, give me a minute, let me reconnect again.
This is like highly. It sounds very simple because everyone's doing it, but it's not that easy.
Hello.
Hello. Okay, yeah, we got you loud and clear. Hello.
Is this better?
Yeah, it's much better. I think last time
is
it
this better?
like, yes. Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I can.
Okay. So we have a question from Sanjana Parekh, and she wants to know, when do you know that your book has ended, and when do you feel it's right to submit to the publisher?
When you run out of stamina. No, it's a tough question actually, because I find that easier to do in non-fiction, because in non-fiction you can structure it better. You know, you're going to start from premise A, end at premise B, and leave it. So that's easier to do. I'm not saying I execute it well because of that, but it's easier to structure. In fiction, I find it much harder, and it's always a challenge, because people always give you good advice on how to start a book. They say you should start as close to the plot as possible. And this is very good in fiction, and I find this even true in journalism. If you start as close to what is happening, you start much better. Nobody actually tells you when to stop. And for me, it's just what I do is, when I finish my first draft, I do not touch the book or touch my notes for approximately 3 or 4 weeks. I take a month off. And then a month later, I come back to the book and try to read it fresh like a reader as much as I can. And for me, that always works. I can always immediately figure out where I've got the plot wrong, where the pace is slowing down, where it's picking up. And in that second reading is normally when I figure out if I finished it too early or too late. Like, for example, I remember Dork 1 I finished too late. I added on a bit at the end, which a lot of people didn't like. And in Dork 2 I finished it too early, but Dork 3 I think I finished it perfectly. So it's very difficult to say. There is no mechanical way to do it. What helps is when you know what your
when you have very good clarity on what your plot is going to be before you start. If you're well structured, you can finish it very well. But that does not mean you should only start if your fictional plot is well structured. I think the vast majority of writers actually don't approach it in that way. They kind of start with an idea and then play it kind of spontaneously as they go along. So yeah, it's a mix of both. Again, Rashmi, this is where the other point I made is important. If you read a lot, you will then develop a sense of how different writers end their book. And you will realize that I like some writers because they ended abruptly, just in the middle. I like some other writers because they have long, like Tolkien at the end of Lord of the Rings, they have this massive 10,000 word ending. So you can choose, and exposure, choice is a combination of different things. There is no mechanical way to figure that out.
So basically, to be a good writer, you should be an avid reader. That's what you feel. That's one of the building blocks of being a writer.
That is non-negotiable. You have to be a very, very good reader before you can become a good writer.
Okay. Okay, we have another question from Adar. She wants to know, have you found the need to cut down on your seriousness in certain writing and add in a little more humor? Have you felt that there are more readers for humor? So,
good question. Actually, what's actually really happened for me is it's the other way around. I've actually started writing less humor than I used to. Two reasons for that. One, I think I've become a less humorous person. My brain doesn't function that way anymore. I think I've become older and grumpier. I'm not joking. It's a very serious thing. The other day I was looking through some very old cricket articles I'd written. I was like, my God, what drugs was I on when I wrote them? What happened today is I think what I find funny has also changed in a way, so that I think reflects in my writing. And I'm quite envious of people like Dave Barry, PJ O'Rourke, and so on, who've kind of maintained a single tone of humor throughout their career. Quite jealous of it. But I've changed as a person, which reflects in. I've always written very personally. That reflects in my writing. And journalism does that too. Journalism forces a certain rationale onto your thought processing. That's one more thing. But interestingly, what I've generally found is humor is a good way of. Humor is easier to sell. It's very easy. It's much more difficult to write than serious work. Humor is nerve-wracking to write, but it's much less. You don't need to give disclaimers to it. You don't need to explain. If you write well, you don't need to explain humor. Non-fiction, on the other hand, or journalism, on the other hand, especially in India, is tremendously judged. More than what you write, people want to know why you've written it and what your ulterior motives are. So you tend to spend a fair amount of time just disclaiming yourself, which is why, like, the Skeptical Patriot has a very long, I think overly long disclaimer in the beginning, which gives people comfort that what they're going to read is reasonably biased. So yeah, it is. I found that I need to. I find that humor draws in people. So I always use humor in the beginning of even fairly serious articles. But once I bring them in, I kind of step back a little bit and make it much more serious. So it's a mix of things. I write differently in different places. What I'm trying to do, in fact, what I'm trying to start from this month onwards, is to start going back and writing a couple of more humor columns more regularly. Because I'd completely given that up over the last 7 or 8 months. And it was good for me. It helped to reboot my system. It cleared up my head. I wasn't feeling performance anxiety. I don't know if you feel this. I feel performance anxiety for humor, but not so much for nonfiction. Because when you're writing nonfiction, you can say the writing is boring, the topics are boring, but at least I gave you something interesting to think about. But if you write a humor book and it doesn't make you laugh, you fail. It doesn't matter how good it is, but if you don't laugh, I've been a failure as a writer. So yeah, maybe I was afraid and I stepped back, but now I'm ready to engage again.
So Vinay Kashyap wants to know if we can expect more books in the Dork series.
Yeah, but with a little more gap, not immediately. Partly I'm going to write it because I'm fed up of answering that question.
Okay.
Because at least once
and she kept writing about Adrian Mole, from 13/3/4 right up to, I think, middle-aged Adrian Mole content with a gap, of course, not like immediately.
Yeah, I probably give it a gap. And the other thing I tried to do was always to kind of hook the books to what is happening in India at that point. And I think I kind of captured the kind of the UPA2 environment well in the third book, I think. So I think I'll just wait for a bit and see what happens over the next 3 or 4 years and then write a Dork story. Maybe make him a politician, because I think that should be great fun. Maybe make him a politician or make him an NGO type guy, a very eager social sector type guy. One of those two sectors. I'll probably pick one of those two. But there are lots of notes. I have like at least another book's worth of ideas and plots and stuff lying with me. It's just that I'm sometimes afraid of being cubbyholed into the guy who writes office culture comedy, and I aspire to greater things. So once I get bored of aspiring, I will go back and write office humor comedy.
Yes. So, what's your advice to these young writers or anybody who wants to, make a entry into the publishing world? Should they get a
Uh,
literary agent? Because I know you did sign up with an agent for your first book.
yes,
Or is
yes.
it like, is it just does a good book always get published? Or are there good books you think which just don't finally publish?
I've seen a couple of manuscripts. By and large, to be fair, if I've seen a good manuscript, it has got published. It may not always find a good publisher. It may not end up being distributed widely, but it tends to get published. Very rarely have I seen good manuscripts not getting published. Unfortunately, the problem with this is it's not just a question of supply. It's not just a question of how good your manuscript is. As you know, in some cases, it's also a question of what the publisher is looking to publish. And I think they got tremendously risk-averse. They were very experimental, and I think that's kind of reduced a little bit recently. They've again become a little wary of taking on new voices and just because I don't think today if I wrote an office culture comedy novel, it may be as well accepted by publishers. But yeah, so it's difficult.
Important, you think, for any book, like you think the timing is important also. It's not always.
Yeah, and I always tell people there are two problems. Getting published is a different problem from writing a good book. You know what I mean? Writing a good book is a particular set of problems which you can solve. Getting published, you don't have that much control. One of the things I tell them, especially if there are people here who've written manuscripts, you're looking for publishers, one thing you need to do is do very good market research. Very easy to do. If you've written if your book is broadly within genre A, go to a bookstore, look at the genre A and see who are all the publishers who are publishing in that genre. And then, because this can often tell you a couple of things. It can tell you if the publisher is looking to expand. Suppose you write a book on, let's say, parenting or dieting, and you see that one publisher is doing a lot of dieting books. It's probably good to speak to them because they may have a plan. Or it could mean that there is a commissioning editor in a publisher. There's one employee in that publishing company who's very keen and getting a lot of money to commission. So then you need to figure out who this editor is. And this could be as easy as opening the book, looking at the acknowledgements to see who the author thanks. So there are lots of indirect ways of figuring out. What I did was, for my first book, is I went to LinkedIn and I looked at everybody I knew who was 2 or fewer degrees of separation away from somebody in Penguin, Harper, and all the other publishers. And that's basically what I did. I didn't do any networking. I just, in the sense, I didn't have to go and beg. I just used this and then sent my manuscript. But I was very lucky. Somebody's, So I was lucky that way. So that's what you should do. Publishing is a lot more about networking and market research. Figure out who's happening, who's publishing, talk to them, talk to authors. It's surprising how many authors who want to get published don't speak to other authors in their same genre. Now, so today somebody is going to write popular Indian history. They should talk to me because I have a basic sense of who's doing what. So this is very important. You need to network not just with, don't just land up at Jaipur or land up for a blogger meet or whatever, but talk to authors. Authors are generally helpful if you ask them straightforward questions. So like I said, there's two different problems. If anybody is here who's finished writing a book, then do your market research, find a publisher. It will probably take you a year, but it's a lot of emailing and waiting to hear back, and so and also many of them do read the submissions email ID which is on the publisher's website, so you shouldn't be afraid of using that.
But Bloody Book as a platform is basically offering these authors a chance to get published through a different route, and we are letting readers also decide whether manuscripts are of interest. So what do you think of this model? Do you think it would work? I mean, just asking for your honest opinion as an author.
No, I think it's an excellent model from the perspective of the writer, from the perspective of the writer's writing, because readers. I know several cases of people who've written great manuscripts, put it up online for free. Everybody liked it, but publishers won't publish it for whatever reason. But what a platform like this helps is getting feedback for your writing, and especially you get feedback from people who have no stake in your success or your happiness. Which is very, very important. When I was writing, and you remember, our blogs used to give us very good feedback. commenters used to tell us what was working, what was not. And I remember there were commenters used to call me on the phone and give me feedback. Peter Griffin, who works with Caparati and now a journalist, he used to call me on the phone and say, I didn't like this, don't do this, do that, whatever. Tremendously helpful. And it's harder to do it today because people don't blog that much and comments are can often be very brutal. But a platform like this can be very helpful because what you will see, hopefully, is that over a period of time, not only will you have dedicated writers, but you'll also have dedicated reviewers.
Yeah,
not people like us. Not people like us, but just people who want to help writers, who want to give good feedback. That is tremendously helpful. Your life can change if you get the right feedback from the right people at the right time. Like I remember, I got this call from a reader who said, you have a certain sense of humor, you have a certain approach. You may not get appreciated for it today because it's new, but stick to it and don't step back. Don't Americanize your sense of humor, keep it Indian. And I've always stuck to that piece of advice and it helped me tremendously.
So basically be open to feedback and, I mean, you don't need to take every feedback, but sometimes somebody you just don't know at all can offer you something very valuable. So that's a good point.
And you should not take all feedback because a lot of feedback is not actionable. I mean, people will give you very global Gyan feedback.
Yeah, the feedback I've been getting for 6 years, that I should not have Hindi in my books because I should write in pure English. So I do ignore that feedback, and I'm sure you get lots of such feedback.
A lot of feedback. I mean, a lot of feedback, and a lot of this feedback, like you said, a lot of this feedback is not constructive feedback. In the sense, it's comparative feedback. Let me put it that way. They read your book, they compare it to another book they like, and they find these gaps, and they tell you to fill those gaps in. But that's because they want, people want me to write like Bill Bryson. I can't write like Bill Bryson for a million reasons. Largely, the largest being he's just a phenomenally good writer. So I cannot, I can't, that is not feedback I can work on directly. On the other hand, if people say you need to do more research or you need to, there should be more of you or less of you, all that is good feedback. So, I mean, it needs guts. It's not just a question of platform. It's also a question of having self-confidence. Because, you have people who never had negative feedback on their writing. The parents will tell them it's awesome. School magazine told them it's amazing. Then they come to your platform, they start getting negative feedback. It gets a little scary. Don't be scared. Don't be scared.
Okay. So we'll have a last 2 or 3 questions. Are there more questions in the okay. What about the marketing aspect? Because now, people believe marketing a book is very important. So how involved are you in marketing and what do you do with, and how much do you think it really contributes to the book's success?
If you're a phenomenon, if you're a people assume that I'm a high-profile writer, which is completely false. I have to do a lot of the marketing for all my books myself. The publishers do help you, but in general, like, the average Indian publisher publishes 1 book per day, and they have limited marketing budgets. They will go with the high-profile. They'll go with Ram Guha and Rashmi and so on. So you need to build your own market. I use social networking for it a lot. I use Facebook and Twitter. You can do quirky little activities. It's very good to do, and always do it. Don't do it. Don't come in, do the marketing, and run away. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Don't do that. Build a community. When I wrote my first book, I had a blog reading community of around 3,000 people, and they took very good care of me. And they took very good care of me, and they communicated with one another very, very frankly. And when my book came out, I always sell 3,000 copies because all of them buy it. And they all give me good feedback, negative feedback. I'm always open to that. Today, I've got 87,000 followers on Twitter. Many of them are bots and so on, but still a lot of them care for the books I write, care for my writing. I try to care as much as I can in return. So build a community early if you can. When you expose yourself to the world, it can get brutal, but a lot of people do care. But you have to do your own marketing. You'll be very, very lucky if your first book gets a large marketing budget. But thankfully, because there are so many literary festivals all over India, you can always brute force your way into at least 1 or 2 of them. Get a couple of good reviews, use social media well, and it's difficult. It's not easy, but it is marketing, and you have to do it. Really helps. Most important thing to do is be honest in your marketing. Project yourself as you are as a writer. Project the book for what it is. I'm not, when I did the Skeptical Theatre, I told people it's me doing nonfiction. It's not It's not guha. I approach it from my perspective. Be honest, be straightforward, cultivate a nice family, make it two-way communication. Don't come to Facebook, put 15,000 updates and disappear a year after your book. Cultivate the community. Because if see, Guha or Rashmi can come in, put a Facebook update, get 10,000 followers, and go away. Next book they'll get another 10,000. We don't have the luxury to do that. If we create a community, it's very expensive to keep it, to nurture it. We have to cultivate it. And the best thing is, don't be a douchebag. That's the easiest way to maintain that community.
So basically, be yourself and be a real person, and not some like some celebrity author. And I think even the whoever you are, you have to go and reach out to people and talk to them. And I mean, sometimes we do events where we hardly have 6 people present, even though it's organized by your publisher. You go to some city and you find that just 10, 15 people have turned up. I know this has happened. I've had this experience.
It has happened to me. I mean, I was in Kochi. They did a reading in Kochi because they assumed that the Mallu lobby will come to read see me. And I think there are 30 chairs, of which 5 were occupied by my family. We had 2 readers, and the rest were all DC Books and Crossroad employees. So, yeah, that happens. And
so
especially the first books, your first few books, the first few readings are just very tough.
Okay. And can we expect you to take up writing full time, or you're going to continue in your job and keep getting material for your books from your?
No, I do very little except write now, because I think 55% of my work is now writing for somebody or the other. I don't completely step away from business. 2 reasons from journalism and that the general job thing. One is because I keep getting so much good material for the books, for everything, great material. And number 2, and this is the honest truth, unless there are very few writers of books in India who can live full time off the earnings of their books. And I am not one of those people. I've said this many times on Twitter before. My total income of all my books put together so far was less than my first 2 years salary post MBA.
Okay. So as a writer, I guess you have to be realistic about the kind of,
Yes.
Financial return you can get. So don't look at that, because a lot of people do come to me, and I'm sure they come to you also, and they read some news report about 1 or 2 people who are earning, big bucks, and they seem to think that there's a lot of scope in publishing today in terms of money. And I don't think money can be. If you're really, really lucky, it could happen, but otherwise, you've got to do it for the love of just being an author, getting published, I think getting an email from a reader who says they really love the book is one of the reasons that authors are growing. Would you agree with that?
Pardon? Can you repeat that again?
I mean, hearing from readers how they've loved your book and sat up all night to read it, or really enjoyed it. I mean, isn't that one of the biggest highs of being an author?
The greatest reward I have ever received from my writing is it happens twice. It just happened recently. Is when people who've had tragedy in their family write to you and say that I remember this guy called me one day and said his mother passed away. Then a few days later, his uncle passed away, his mother's brother. And he said his life was completely devastated. He didn't know what to do. Somebody gifted him the Dork trilogy, and he just read it end to end. And he said that was the only bit of happiness he had in his life for like 2 years. It is the most amazing reward I have received in my life. It moves me when I talk about it. It happened again recently. Somebody was very ill, and they said they were diagnosed with some very bad illness. Got through it because of my book. Nothing. Rashmi, give me all the money in the world, I would trade it for that feeling. You've genuinely touched somebody's life. And as a humor writer, a writer of insubstantial fiction, that is just amazing.
We'll just check if there are any more questions. Otherwise, we'll call it a day. So thank you so much, Sidin. It was wonderful to see you once again. I remember, I'll never forget the movie we went to see. Remember which movie? With Himesh Reshammiya's movie.
Yes.
What was it called? Yeah, and then you came back and you wrote this really funny cover story for Jam after that.
Yeah, I remember. It was like, good day.
12 o'clock in the afternoon, we went for the first day, first show, and then he ran back and he wrote this article, and then
And
he
we were
made a cartoon, and so I
and
think
we were sitting behind this bank of Himesh fans, if you remember.
yeah, and there were people who'd come wearing the caps. The whole hall was
And
full.
t-shirts.
So I think you can do humor on tap, okay? I don't care how old you get, whatever excuses you're making. I mean, you just have to watch another Himesh movie and it'll all start flowing once again. And I hope to see you in India soon and get my book signed by you.
Yes, I'll be there in September, I think.
Or if you're doing a book tour, do let us know and we'll kind of broadcast it on Bloody Good Book, and I'm sure there are a lot of readers and writers who can come and attend your sessions. And we look forward to maybe sending you a few selected manuscripts, or if you just as a reader have
I'd be happy.
time, interest in just giving your honest feedback to people, we'd be really delighted with that.
Yeah, I'd be happy to do that.
Great. So thank you so much, and hope to meet you soon and keep getting more and more stuff to read from you.
Yeah, hope so. And see you soon, Rashmi. I'll see you as soon as I come to India.
Okay. That's a
Bye,
promise.
guys. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yes, promise.
Bye.
Bye.